Hello, team. I'm on today with the Evergold team here with Alex and Charlie to talk a little bit about their project. It's a bit of a new project for me, so I'm doing a bit of a cold eyes first take on it, and I'm looking forward to hearing what they're looking to do here in the coming season and review some of the project development to date, as well as their exploration plans for the coming season. So, yeah, with that, please take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Nate. Yeah, Charlie and I are basically recently become kind of a little more involved back in Evergold. It's been around for a while. We've been directors of the company, but we've since migrated into management with myself becoming president and Charlie becoming executive chairman here. We got some great new people involved, and we're trying to set things up and go have some fun in the Northern Toodoggone, which we haven't been up to since 2021. So we're going to be talking about dominantly the Golden Lion project, which is one of our flagship projects and has some very nice historical intercepts. So I'll flip the presentation open and I'll let Charlie do some of the talking about the geology because he's more versed in that than I am, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Yeah, there's, generally what it looks like up there. And yeah, we are going to be making some forward-looking statements. So here we go. Yeah, it's as Alex says, focus is going to be on Golden Lion. There's other properties in Evergold, but yeah, this is sort of the top priority. Obviously, the Toodoggone is a very exciting area right now. So lots of news coming out from Thesis Gold, from A-Mark, from TDG Gold, from Sun Summit, and others. Including some of the majors up there. Anyway, we've got this drill ready gold silver project, Golden Lion. When we left there, we left with the best intercepts that had ever been made on that property, and we're looking forward to getting back and hammering at it. So next slide. Yeah, and as Alex mentioned, renewed leadership, him and I, new CFO. And then we got some capital markets people in there, relatively new director in Alvin Jackson, a very experienced geo who's had some success in the business. And then we're going to have a project manager, Taylor Quinn, who's just finishing up his master's that he started on Golden Lion right at the end of when we were up there. Next one.
We got
Okay.
some, yeah.
Yeah, you go with this.
Yeah,
And
we got some
yeah.
we did some rollback probably a few months back just to try to clean the company up. The company pretty well only has about 18 million shares fully diluted out. Charlie does have a convertible debt because he helped the company out in the fall there for our DEM drill program, which we're still waiting on results for. And yeah, so it's a pretty good share structure. Everything's tight. Management owns quite a bit of it. And Charlie's one of the major shareholders also. And yeah, we're pretty happy that way on the capital side of things. And we're just gonna move on to that.
Yeah, just before you switch that,
Oh.
that hurt, that rollback, and it hurt for all shareholders. But I've had every share that I ever owned of this, and I helped form the company. So, it hurt me, even though I am one of the major shareholders or the largest single one. Yeah, I feel your pain, previous shareholders, and I took it with you. So there you go. Toodoggone. Here's where are our neighbors? I guess, Alex has been involved with a lot of the geophysics up here. Some of our crew have been working up here, not just on Golden Lion, but on other neighboring properties, and a lot of success recently with the Aurora discovery with A-Mark and TDG, their neighbors, who have also got a piece of that, as they mentioned in their news release this morning. And TDG has Shasta. Thesis has both the lawyers and the ranch parts of their property, both producing some great gold silver numbers. Sun Summit as well, kind of in between there. And then there's Finlay, there's us, and there's a few others there, obviously. So it's going to be making news this year. So those companies. If you look at the table there, they're pretty highly capitalized relative to Evergold. So we're going to be looking to do a raise, and we figure we're a pretty darn good investment if you're looking at wanting to get in on a Toodoggone play.
Yeah, the nice thing about the Toodoggone is right now is not a lot of real estate left. I mean, and Evergold is probably one of the probably better remaining targets up there. We do have intercepts. We have a lot of historical data and we can work through. So we're just going to give you a quick view of the land here and see how everything lies.
Yeah, really nice looking view. So this is a view looking northerly along the trend, kind of north northwest. And one of the things that struck me about this is, if you look at all the little black dots in there, those are the mineral occurrences, and kind of down. It's kind of down both sides, but if you really looked closely, there's a lot of mineral occurrences kind of on the right-hand side of the view, the center right. And that's kind of what, we've sort of internally called the porphyry trend. So from the south, even farther south than this image, there's the Chemes mine, a really good copper gold porphyry producer of Centerras that is now, mothballed, but they're thinking of reopening. And there's a number of other porphyry deposits already drilled off with resources on them down on that property just off the south end here. Then there's the Aurora discovery, so a very, very nice high grade copper gold porphyry, and it spills onto TDG's ground right next door. And then there's a very nice epithermal deposit, the Shasta deposit, that's been was had a little bit of mining in the past, but TDG's been drilling heavily on that. And then as you go farther north over to the west side, there's the Baker mine. It was the original mine in the district. I was actually there when it was still being mined, and then just north of that, there's the Lawyers deposit. Their AGB zone was we went underground with them back in the day when I first went to work in the business. That was just they were just going underground on that, and they have some nice zones on that property. Still farther north, there's the Thesis Ranch property there with a number of zones, and the neighbor Sun Summit with a bunch of zones. And those properties also have some porphyry style alteration, principally in the lower units of the Toodoggone Formation. So this Aurora discovery of A-marks has kind of opened the door to the Toodoggone Formation as being a possible porphyry host. So you can carry that still farther north, and there we are on the Golden Lion project. And it has both the epithermal and some really good hints in the stream sediment geochemistry and some old historical drilling, of copper mineralization. So we've got kind of some both potential for both on that property, more than potential. I mean, there's some really nice drill intercepts on the gold silver part of the property, the Golden Lion. So next one.
Well, before we move on, one of the big things is actually we should look at is
Yeah.
the access here. Since last time we were up there, we were flying out of Black Lake somewhere over here, slinging all the gear up. But right now we can get right up the access road a lot closer because the ranch opened it up and they put a bridge across the Toodoggone River. So which greatly simplifies life getting to the Toodoggone, I mean, up to the Golden Lion project. So even our sling loads are quite a bit less. So, we can actually probably get to here. So it's only about a 15-kilometer sling with a helicopter. So it makes a big difference. I mean, it starts really adding up and there'll be a significant savings. Plus, we have a lot of the resources still up there from when we were there last.
Good point. Yeah. Okay, so what is Golden Lion? Well, it's a property that I think I first staked in 2006 or 7, 8, maybe. I forget. Accidentally dropped it once. Oh yeah, there it's 2007. But I've held it for a long time. Never had it optioned off before it went into Evergold. Has a really nice broad uh, soil geochem anomaly that Newmont tested in 1984, and they just did one drill program on it. Quite a number of holes and some really great broad intercepts with some high grade within it. And again, as Alex noted, the access is better in a sense now because you can get closer to the helicopter than we could when we last drilled it in 21. Yeah, then the
Yeah,
other thing was we acquired some inlier claims to this property up in the north that are around the copper potential. So we never really went after that at all when we were up there previously.
So, I mean, we have a really nice data set to work with historically around the GL1 zone. There's been about 5,900 meters since drilled by Newmont and us in 2020 and 2021. And we actually managed to map a nice corridor through there. So it's actually, we can actually hold things together when we re-examine it, put the data together in 3D and really do some wireframing on it. We've actually have some very good targets. Interestingly, up in the northern part, as Charlie alluded to, there's some very nice copper numbers. I mean, it looks like some sort of copper system, and there's some historical drilling which we'll show in the future here in a few slides down the road.
Excellent. Yeah.
This is just a quick map of some of the areas we've been working on. What we see on the screen is we actually have DC resistivity from some of the geophysics we did. And that really highlights this controlling structure or thrust fault that comes up here right through the GL main zone. And this is where our goodies kind of sit. And our last set of drill holes was right around in here somewhere. And we got some nice, very nice numbers that held together in section, which is really what you want to see in exploration drilling, holding things together and putting it, be able to wireframe from section to section. In the north
Yeah, I
here,
think
we also
the other point there about the gold zone there is, this is an oblique view, so it's kind of hard to get a sense of scale. But that main zone and the soil geochem anomaly is over 2 kilometers long, so it's a broad target. There's plenty of room there, even though the claim boundaries on the other side look pretty tight in. It's still kilometers across, so
yeah,
no
that's a good
problem
point.
that way.
Yeah, it's a great point. And then basically we also acquired these the Copper King and the Claw occurrence up here, and there's some really nice copper numbers. And the stream sets up here from the historical data are actually extremely anomalous. I mean, you're getting up to 500-600 ppm copper in this and over multiple samples. So we actually are pretty encouraged by some of the copper potential up in the porphyry potential up here. So that's definitely something we're going to look at this year, along with basically the GL1 zone, because we do think we have a lot of potential up here. So this is just a quick some 3D visualizations and just kind of showing where things are. We'll kind of just walk you through what we've done here. This section here was the last hole drilled, set of offensive holes drilled in 2001. And they actually have a quite a nice section that just holds together. As if you look at it here, all these holes are drilled out in front. So these holes are near this thrust structure, which are actually quite a bit away from these holes. And a lot of the holes were drilled basically down dip. And basically, when you look at them in section, you can actually see where you actually probably had some issues why we didn't hit mineralization. But going back through it, and I'll show you in a few slides here why we can think we can hold it together, and we'll go from there. But we do have probably about 150 meters on either side, 100 meters. And this section here is like the same grade as this one and wide open underneath it. There's another section.
Yeah, and I think it's worth pointing out that you're looking. This is sort of a long section, so it's a slice on the right hand side, along the full length of that center part of the GL1 zone where Newmont focused their drilling. So most of the holes there are Newmont holes. We had some, and that one longer prong in the drilling there, that's one of our holes that drilled a little bit deeper, but still not very far below surface. And yeah, that left-hand view is a slice, at 90 degrees to the right-hand view, down that section of holes that tracks the thrust, the controlling structure with its broad intercepts of lower grade hosting these higher grade gold intercepts within it, and largely kind of missed by many of the Newmont holes that we're drilling, kind of into and sort of parallel to the major controlling structure.
Yeah, and here's basically the highlights of some of the grades we got from the last round of drilling here, and you can see how we could just wireframe this section and things really hold together. I mean, this is what basically from our past news release, we had 66 meters of 1.36 grams with 11 grams per ton silver. Now we have another 40 meters of 0.98. And then we come down here, we get 40 meters of 1.99 grams per ton with 23 grams per ton silver. And then, so, I mean, obviously there's averaging incorporating high grades in these, but you can see the envelope really sticks together. So you have this high grade sitting there, and it's basically this enveloped with lower grade mineralization. So, but you can see the consistency coming through here, which is kind of quite encouraging.
Yeah, and I think the other point to mention here, this is a very similar section to the previous orientation wise to the previous one. We're kind of zoomed in just on that one part of the zone. So, if you can just back it up one slide there, Alex. Yeah, and then outline kind of that section we showed is there when we're looking, into the plane of the of the thrust fault. But then on the left-hand side, maybe you can just put a square around what we're looking in the next side. And in this one, we've projected all the Newmont holes from farther to the to the southeast and farther to the northwest into one plane. So we're looking at a very thick slice in that case of the drill section. And then when we just look at the narrow slice around our last holes, 23, 24, 25 of the 21 field season, you can see that, yeah, right in there, that's the part we want to test, and then we want to walk that out in both directions, both to the northwest and to the southeast, and show that zone has continuity in those directions, so we can put a bit more of a resource together. I think we got a very, very good chance of doing that because the soil geochem parallels that trend at surface. And it looks kind of like in places Newmont, didn't test along that structure that's so nicely outlined by the DC resistivity. Okay.
Yeah, and here's just a quick little fly through here. I mean, basically things turning around here. So you can see here as you rotate through, you have all this volume underneath here, and you have this hole open up at the top. So you see the same mineralization up here, and this is all open behind it. So we think we can basically come in right behind this and get some very similar results. Very similar on this side, as you're seeing mineralization here up in front, and then basically nothing behind it. We keep rotating through.
So just outline that sort of panel of mineralization parallel to the thrust is just that gray envelope you show around all the gold geochem.
And a lot of times, if you basically go and turn off the holes which are drilled the opposite direction, you can make a lot more sense out of this. So it really will hold together if we actually step across and systematically drill it, basically with doing a similar geometry to the last fence drilled. And I think we have a very good chance, as Charlie said, of actually building a bit of a resource here. And that's that there. Let's move on to the next slide. And we did some geophysics up here also, and we can actually also track the same feature coming across here. Here's the chargeability, and as we've noted before, sometimes it's not always the chargeability you want to drill, but the shoulders of the chargeability. So you can see how this feature drops down here, and this is more of a contact, and this is where the thrust lies coming up here. So you really see it just nestling in the side of this moderate chargeability in the sides. I mean, granted, this is an epithermal system, so these chargeability values are quite low. So it's not that much contrast.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I mean, we worked away at this, back then a bit, and it is a good contrast with for example, the NIV chargeability. So it's partly about contrast, but here you see the chargeability levels are much lower than at NIV. But that just reflects, the style of system. It's not a high sulfide system. There's sulfides there, but they're not anywhere near as abundant as you'd get in a typical porphyry system.
Yeah, it's epithermal. So the resistivity is probably a better judge and basically better use here. You can really see how this moderate resistivity feature, or low resistivity feature, just kind of nestles in here, probably partially identifying the alteration and also the fault structure itself. So you really see how the mineralization is kind of holds together here. So we can track this in the geophysics for about 1 kilometer. I mean, that's with the extents of the geophysics. We can really get, and we'll show that in the next slide here. I mean, here's that mineralized envelope we were looking at spinning around there. And then basically you see this resistivity trend is tracking down here. So this is probably the contact or the part of the thrust coming through here. And we can just see how it just nestles right in front. What you do note is a lot of this drilling was done backwards here, basically just to the southwest of the structure itself. A lot of them didn't get close enough to the structures to actually maybe get into it. So
Yeah, and it seems like, from Taylor's geology that he's done, there's also an intrusion. It's kind of hard to distinguish from the host rocks because it's somewhat similar composition, but he's definitely outlined an intrusion that seems to track along that structure. And, some people, maybe the more informed geological type people might be saying, well, this is an epithermal system. They're typically extensional kind of situations, especially in the Toodoggone where they're, kind of low grade rocks. Like, why is this lying around along a thrust fault? Well, probably it's an inverted structure. So originally it probably was an extensional structure. And then maybe in the mid-Cretaceous, when the Skeena Fold Belt, for example, out to immediately to the west was forming, maybe there was some compression and that it kind of inverted that structure and turned it from an extensional structure with the younger rocks in the hanging wall to a compressional structure with the older rocks in the hanging wall. So that's the situation we think at Golden Lion.
Yeah, and just moving on to the next structure. I mean, this is kind of some simplified geology here. We got a little bit of a scaling area here, so just ignore that. But you can see there's mineralization all down this contact here, and this is really what we want to be checking out and really looking at. So you can see we have a lot of real estate here. I mean, that's 200 meters there, so that's about 1.8 kilometers coming down between these holes over here. These holes are tracing some gold zinc targets, and they're a little probably outside of what we were actually looking for. So we'd really want to be focused on this contact rather than over here. And it should also note that this slide here, these little inliers are all taken care of when we have the entire area.
Yeah, and then some of those rock units in the different colors on the geologic map include the intrusion that kind of follows that originally extensional structure. So fairly new mapping by Taylor and others, and yeah, we're excited to go in there and follow it up.
Yeah, and moving on, we got a little copper kicker as some of the people that like to sell stuff like to use for words, but it's actually a good little kick and it's kind of sticking around a bit.
Yeah,
So
and that
go
that
ahead.
is true. We were a little skeptical at first, but it has digging into the old data, it's the real deal. And when you look at it regionally, it's maybe not that big a surprise. So the copper has turned out good. And as Alex said, the stream sediment sampling that was undertaken there, I don't know, was it back in the 70s, I think, Alex, maybe
In
into the
70s,
80s?
yeah.
Yeah, those numbers are, very good and they're very consistent. It isn't just one sample from a drainage. It's old school where, they had some poor Gumby walking up the creek and taking a sample every 100 meters or whatever. Been there. It works. And when you see those kind of consistent numbers, you sit up and take notice. There's something happening there. So we are actually pretty excited about that.
Yeah, here's just a map of some of the historical data which is put together. Basically looking at, say, some of the rock samples. I mean, there's a lot of stream sets up here which are basically very anomalous. And so what I did was I just labeled the numbers that are greater than 1%. So you got a 2% here. I mean, it's sometimes not always representative when you get these little high grade samples, but when you get enough of them, you just want to start paying attention, especially with some of the stream silts samples. You really want to basically say, okay, well, we possibly should be taking a look at the porphyry potential up here a little bit more. It should be noted that, there is actually some old drilling up on this hole here from the 1970s done by UMAX from an old assessment report. And you can see they actually pulled native copper in the hole. So it's, makes you kind of think about it a bit. We also have some skarn style mineralization out back here behind the GL target when we had some very nice golds also. So we have a lot of copper on the property. As you can see, this is, like say, everything greater in purple. Purple is a 0.5% in a rock sample. So it's half decent.
Yeah, so can you point out GL1 there as your cursor working? I couldn't see it there.
Oh, sorry, my mistake. Right there
Yeah,
is
the
GL.
GL1's right down in the bottom, and then so this is samplings, scattered throughout, maybe as much as 10 kilometers. Yeah, so there's a lot of copper smoke around on the northern part of the property.
Yeah, I mean, you come up here. I mean, this is 3.2 kilometers. I mean, it's got some serious size to grow here. I mean, the reason it's probably called the Copper King. So here's basically what our plan is for the next moving forward for the next little while here. I mean, we're gonna keep working on the targets areas here, and I think we're pretty close to actually having a nice plan map. So we're raising some money, going to go look for some drill contractors, which we've already been in touch with. We're also going to basically hopefully get some results back from them in the near future here, so we can talk about that single hole we drilled, and we'll see what happens there, and then evaluate some of the more of the copper potential, and then to maybe do some airborne geophysics, and then move on to drilling in the GL1 zone and some exploration around the property for the copper potential. Anything else, Charlie?
No, I think that pretty much sums it up. We're excited. It's kind of nice to be back. We've had a few years to kind of sit on those numbers. We liked what we saw. The market wasn't really ready for that kind of stuff, but things have turned around in the market, and certainly
The Toodoggone.
things have really heated up in the Toodoggone. So, yeah, it's turned into, a reinvigorated property, reinvigorated company, and we're stoked on it. I'm ready to be the next Tony Moreau, a little older version, but just as excited.
No, and it actually does have the right address. It's got the right location, and we have the people to work it. So, I mean, here's just a little interesting. These are probably a little low, given the price of gold's rocking around like a yo-yo. But apples and oranges in some cases here. But we're probably sitting around the $6 million market cap. So we do have a lot of upside to it. And there's not a lot of real estate left, and especially not a lot of real estate with some nice numbers on it to start with, and a bona fide drill target with a permit. So it's pretty exciting stuff, and we're looking to hopefully get that drilled in probably in early July.
Awesome.
And anyone reach out to any of us, and once again we'll be at PDAC. Happy to talk about it, and happy to anyone who wants to please just reach out to me. There's some contact information here in the next page if I could actually get to it. And yeah, and or Charlie or whoever, and we can happily to bend your ear about it and show you why we're excited.
Any questions, Nate?
Yeah, no,
Processing.
You guys pick me up?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, no, thank you for that overview and showcase of the targets. I was definitely not keeping up to speed with the GL1 or the Golden Line in general. And from what you guys are showcasing, you got quite a handle on it here now, and we'll call it the systematic approach you're laid out to see if the thesis you have about it being continuous is going to pan out. So, yeah, good luck to you guys on that. And then as far as the project also having the potential for a copper exploration, I think that leads to some exciting upside. So this season is going to be primarily focused on GL1. Can you talk space on some of the other activities that you're going to be doing for field work or studies up in the north and around the copper, or is that not necessarily a focus for this year?
No, we're actually pricing out some airborne geophysics as we speak to actually get some regional concepts of what's going on up there. The main focus will be on GO1 for drilling. However, as we were going to have a camp and helicopter there, we will definitely be doing some sampling and looking around and poking and checking out what we get from geophysics when we actually do that prior to the field season.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of, we always knew those inliers were there. It was a case of, why go do some work for someone else in the past, up and around those things. So we didn't really put any time into that. We didn't fly airborne except for on the southernmost part of the property. So doing that, I think we'll get that airborne data. Let's see what that tells us, and follow up on that. I think we want to get some of our better, experienced folks, maybe even me, limping around out there, following up on some of those stream sediment anomalies that they're telling you something. So let's go take a look, and that's kind of the way we'd started out. It's just like you said, just that systematic exploration and work it up from there. And who knows, we might have a drill target by the end of the season. I could well do that. I think, we'd have
Yeah.
to that part, but I don't think it'd be a problem.
No, that's great. Yeah, that's pretty much it I have for questions for now. I've definitely got my homework cut out for me to do some more studying under the hood there. I look on your guys' website. You've got some of the old 43-101s that are available for it. So that's great that that's available for investors who want to take a look. So maybe we'll have a follow-up question set here as the season progresses, and yeah, look forward to the kickoff of this project as well.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks for your time, Nate.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Nathan.